We are back with Comptroller Mark Levine, and I just wanted to talk to you. I was reading some columns this past week, and I was struck by a quote from Andrew Stein, who used to be the Manhattan Borough President, City Council President, and he said, we're ideological theater dressed up as a budget policy, as criticism. What do you take away from a statement like that? Is that just hyperbole, or should we be worried about the way our fiscal policy is going?
No, there's a lot of theatrics in the budget process. There always has been. But at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. And there's really nowhere to hide when it comes time to pass a budget. And one of two things is going to happen, Marcia. Either we're going to do some tough work to try and close this structural gap, or we're going to kick a very big can into next year when we face a lot of risk. I'm going to be fighting for the city to do tough work now to really end this structural gap between what we spend and what we bring in, so we're on a good base for next year and beyond.
So when you say tough work, are we talking about tightening our belt and cutting agency budgets one by one by one? Are we talking about changing our tax policy? What are we talking about?
It's going to take a mix of efforts. We're going to need more help from Albany, for sure, because we send more than we get back. We are going to have an across-the-board efficiency savings in every agency. The mayor's done some of that. I think we're going to have to do more. And then there's actually cutting the costs of some of these very fast-growing programs. We've talked about housing vouchers. We can talk about our schools budget, Marcia, which has been going up steadily. It's now at $37 billion, but we've lost students. We're down 100,000 students from 2020, and we had lost 100,000 in the decade prior to that. Yet the budget doesn't reflect that. And I'm sure there are savings in a budget that big, which is down so much in enrollment.
You know, when you talk to the Citizens Budget Commission, they say you can save $400 million just by taking a look at the schools who have reduced enrollment and giving them money that fits the size of the enrollment that they have now. But that's like a third rail for politicians, because you have people who represent those school districts in the city council who say, wait, don't cut my school. So how do you make that politically palatable to people who want to take care of the people in their district?
Yeah, it's very tough, but it's becoming quite unequal, because you have some schools which are getting way more per child because they've had enrollment drop. But I think there's an opportunity in combining schools. Marcia, we have 200 schools in the city that have 200 students or less.
What?
Yes. That means they still have a full-time principal, assistant principal, school secretary, guidance counselor, et cetera. So it's very expensive. We could combine some of those schools and save a lot of money. Now, that's also not popular, but the current chancellor, Kamar Samuels, had a good track record of doing that when he was superintendent of District 3 on the west side in Harlem, and it was never easy. He pulled it off. I know he's thinking about it. That's the kind of measure that could save us probably hundreds of millions of dollars. Tough politically, but I think we don't have a choice.
But do you think that, I mean, how do you, I guess you have to give people the tough medicine to take now, because we're in a difficult situation.
Look, I think we have to be very clear to the public that we have a problem that we have to solve. We're all going to have to link arms and work on this together. This is not a catastrophe because the budget is strong and still growing. This is not the 1970s, and we're better off than other cities. But even here, we have a problem, and it's going to require making some tough work together with the political cost. I'm ready for that work, and I hope my colleagues in government are as well.
So I have to talk to you about a political sticky wicket. The mayor of the city of New York would like to see the pension funds divest from Israel and also our investments. I actually took a look at it. Since 2019, we've invested $504 million in bonds and Israeli businesses. I wonder how you feel about that, and as controller, since you sit on the pension funds, how you feel about divesting.
Yeah, I wonder if that number might be the state number, but I certainly believe we should have a globally diversified portfolio where we have investments in every major economy of the world. And yes, that should include Israel, which has been a very strong investment for us for decades. The bonds have never missed a payment.
Have we made money from this?
Absolutely.
It's been good for the pension funds?
Absolutely. They pay good interest. They're a solid investment, and they should be part of a diverse portfolio. They have been part of our portfolio since the 70s. They're still part of the state pension funds portfolio and many other pension funds around the country. And I have a fiduciary responsibility to advocate for good returns for our pension fund. That's what I'm doing now. and saying Israel has been a good investment. It will continue to be, in my opinion, and therefore it should be part of our portfolio.
But the political winds of acceptance of Israel because of the war in Gaza have shifted, and do you feel political pressure because of that?
Look, I have very close ties to Israel. I have family and friends there. I have deep affection for the country. I also have plenty of criticisms of the government and their policies. I've been in the streets protesting this government. That's the same situation with the United States of America, by the way, where I have a love for the country and criticisms for the government. And you know what? We own a lot of U.S. bonds as well. So I need to separate out the political questions from my fiduciary responsibility. That's what I'm doing on Israel bonds and so much more. That's what I was elected to do.
So I would like to talk to you about the fact that you've become controller of the city of New York since January.
Yeah.
What's the best part of the job?
I am loving this. I am learning so much. I have such a broad portfolio. We touch every aspect of the economy and the budget and so much more. I have an amazing team of 800 people that are passionate and smart and committed. So I'm really happy to be in this role, and I am grateful to everyone who helped me get here.
What's the best part of the job?
I can touch every aspect of government, but if there's a pothole on 42nd Street, it's not my fault.
What's the worst part of the job?
People get angry if they don't get their claim paid out when they sue the city. They get angry if there's an issue on their pension funds. People's livelihood are tied up in some of the policies of the office, and we got to respond to them. And I do, but it's hard when people feel like their livelihood's at risk.
So last question, how has your life changed since you've taken on this job?
So do you know that I have a police detail now?
You do?
Yes.
Do you like it?
I have an amazing crew of detectives who protect me, but it's a very big change to my professional and personal life, and it's taking some getting used to.
Okay, on that note, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you at home for joining us as well.
Thank you, Marcia.
We are back with Kathryn Wylde, former president of the Partnership for New York City. I wanted to ask you, what's your biggest concern right now? You know, we were talking about how you need to cut spending, but what's the biggest concern that you have in terms of a viable New York City?
Well, we have to stay a place where global talent sees the best opportunities for their own advancement and development. And right now, the biggest threat to that is restrictive immigration policy that makes it hard or expensive for people to come here as students. International students are way down, and students tend to stay here. So that issue, the immigration issue, is really a big one. And I'm hopeful that we've learned some lessons in the past years, and that now that we seem to have controlled the borders, we'll figure out how to create a stronger, better immigration policy to make sure we keep the talent. We won't lose business if we keep the talent coming here.
Do you think people understand the amount of jobs that people coming into our country as immigrants fill in our economy?
I don't think they have a sense of that. But in fact, in New York City, it's not only jobs, but a majority of the entrepreneurs are first-generation immigrants. So it's building businesses, and as well as providing the talent to do the hard jobs.
So as an astute observer of the political scene, I wonder how you think the new mayor is doing in terms of his relationship with the business community.
Well, I've been working with the new mayor on a couple of the issues, housing issues, and we've got a meeting coming up on grocery prices.
One of his key issues.
So, yeah, absolutely. And talking to his team about how we focus on economic growth, not just economic justice. So I think he's paying attention, and it's early on in his administration, but I see him reaching out increasingly, and willing to accept help. And he's put together a pretty good team across the board. I met with the housing people and the banks last week, and actually beginning of this week. And there's a real opportunity for partnership and working together. You know, I went through the the last industrial revolution in New York in the 60s and early 70s, when we went from an industrial manufacturing economy to a service economy. We're now going through another industrial revolution, from the service economy to the digital economy, complicated by AI and all that represents, which everybody is trying to figure out. And New York has to stay at the front of the pack globally, and I'm confident we will.
But are you worried that this is going to be a loss of jobs because AI will replace people?
From everybody I talk to in the AI world, it's a matter of retraining people how to use AI, and in fact, we'll have more opportunities for people in the job, more jobs. So I think we're going to be fine. We just have to make sure we're all working together. I mean, the thing that got us through the last fiscal crisis in the city and this industrial economy to a service economy, what got us through was that business, labor, and government worked together in lockstep and provided their combined resources and expertise to make sure we came out stronger than ever. The same thing happened after 9/11. And now we're facing a similar dramatic change. And as long as we stay on the same page and are working on pragmatic solutions, I mean, there are not political solutions to these problems, whatever the politicians say. That's not where the answers are going to come from. The answers in terms of keeping strong jobs, strong tax rolls, strong business, that's going to come from us sitting down together on a regular basis and figuring out how all sectors of our community can work together.
You know, I often describe you as one of the wise women of New York. I wonder, how did you find yourself at the partnership?
I was introduced to David Rockefeller when he started the partnership back in 1981 by labor leaders Harry Van Arsdale and Peter Brennan, who were head of the Central Labor Council and the building trades. And they very much wanted to bring a middle class back to the city. We had lost our blue-collar, middle-class jobs in this industrial revolution. And Harry Van Arsdale used to say, I want a 40-hour work week, but my people now have to travel each two hours each way from a place where they can afford to live to get to the city. We're in a very similar situation today, but they asked me to write a paper on how the banks could take the lead in rebuilding the neighborhoods, creating home ownership opportunities, bringing a middle class back to the city. I did that. They took me to meet David Rockefeller, and he said he liked the idea and would I like to come on board and do it. So I was there 44 years.
Wow. So what was it like for you as a woman when you first started out in that arena?
I would say it was relatively lonely, but there were some strong women in key positions in the business community who reached out and helped me and taught me how to write talking points and try and manage the diverse interests that it takes to make things happen in this city. And so I was lucky.
Has it changed?
The city?
No, the arena, the environment that when you came in, it must have been, more difficult to establish yourself as a woman, and now...
Oh, yes. No, it's changed dramatically. In the last 50 years since I entered the workforce, you entered the workforce at similar time, it's changed dramatically, and that's great. And women are in a much stronger position today, but still, there are plenty of issues they're facing.
So what is your advice to women who are trying to enter the same world that we exist in now?
Well, I think that I think we recognize right now that women's style of leadership, and Governor Hochul's a great example of this, that women's style of leadership is really important at a moment when our world and our communities are so fractured and politically polarized. And for most women, they can kind of cut through the differences and lead by building consensus, by bringing everybody on board. They don't tend to have the big egos that make that hard.
Yeah.
So, so I think it's a great opportunity for women to lead right now.
So I'd like to end with this. Do you have any memorable moments of your 44 years in this job that you'd like that come back to you when you think about it?
Well, we built over 40,000 units of owner-occupied housing in the city and gave people access to the primary source of wealth creation in this country is home ownership. And in New York City, still today, we only have like 32% of New Yorkers own their own home. It's a very small number in our city. So I think that that was a big contribution, and that's something I hope we see come back, because I think that equity, it helps to narrow the wealth gap, and it helps to keep people positive about the potential that their kids can do as well as they do. I mean, when college graduates can't get a job, which is what we're facing right now, a tough time for young people, that's pretty discouraging. We got to do something about that, and I think we can.
Kathryn, Wylde, still making a difference. Thank you for joining me, and thank you at home for joining us as well.